Good evening to everyone. I'd like to ask those present in the chamber and the council, if they would, to, in respect for our loss of Officer Adam Hewitt, to please rise with me at this time for a moment of silence for remembering him as he came to our council members, and also his family and friends and the department whose loss they have sustained. Thank you. Councilmember Eddie Smotherman has our prayer and pledge this evening.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the many blessings you've given us on this day. We want to remember those who have lost so much in Connecticut, the families who continue to grieve and suffer from their loss. We pray that you lay your hand on those people and continue to send comfort their way. We're thankful for those who are in countries defending our country tonight in the military. We're thankful for all those who provide that service and make us the great country that it is. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to Murfreesboro City Council, December 20th, 2012. And again, all of us express our sorrow and grief at what happened in Connecticut, and certainly we hope as a country we can join together to find solutions for that type of rage and outpouring. But anyway, on a good note, we have tonight Shannon Logan, our Service Excellence Coordinator, who has a STARS award to give, and I think I'll come down and help you do that, if that's all right. If you go ahead and begin that.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening to Mayor and City Council members this evening. I'm very proud and honored to present before you another one of our employee stars. We are very excited that you continue to support this program and our outstanding employees. Tonight's recipient is Ms. Karen Hyduke from our Human Resources Department. I will let her department head, Mr. Glenn Godwin, wants to say a few words, and then we'll have Mayor issue her certificate. But I would just like to tell you that the STARS Awards Committee that votes on this reviewed all the applications. There were several applications received from fellow employees and employees' spouses about how Karen had treated them and handled them through all of the transition during the insurance changes, and that her constant character and her outstanding way of being every time they needed her, and her response to them was just so outstanding that they all felt that she deserved the award, and she was nominated by multiple people. So for that, we're very honored tonight that Karen Hyduke will be receiving this month's STARS Award. I think she's here with her husband as well. So, Mr. Godwin, would you like to come to the microphone?
Thank you, Shannon. I just want to echo those words about Karen and her work. And we're very fortunate, and I feel very professionally privileged to work with Karen. I know that a number of you even have had experiences with questions and things that maybe weren't so clear, and she has a remarkable ability to make clarity out of things that don't seem that way. So we're very fortunate to have her working in the Human Resources Department in the city. Thanks, Karen.
Karen, you want to come up? And you've got a special guest with you, I believe. You want to introduce your special guest and have them come up too?
This is my husband, Mike Hyduke.
Okay, come on in. Mike, congratulations. Your support at home makes it possible for Karen to give the support here at the city. So I appreciate that, and Shannon's excellence of taking good care. And we're certainly proud and privileged to have you work with the city of Murfreesboro and we are really honored that you're here tonight and to accept this award on behalf of all of us. Thank you. Thank you very much. And you might want to say a little something.
No, I do not. Just thank you.
Okay. You're going to save all your words for our employees and to help them through the day.
I am.
All right, so we're proud
Thank
and
you.
privileged to be with you. Thank you,
very
Mike.
much.
Again, thanks a lot.
And I'd like to echo that Karen does do a fabulous job. In fact, when she sees me, she runs and hides. I have so many questions. Congratulations.
I think this award is certainly indicative of all of our frontline employees with the city of Murfreesboro, and it is hard to make a choice because of so many who do such excellent, outstanding work. And so we certainly applaud the STARS program and our first 3 recipients that we have had, and we look forward to many more. Thank you. Also, Ms. Logan, I think you had a little talk about the Ron Washington Special Citizens Government Academy. I'm sure that we'll have to come up with that moniker in the logo or something. But Ms. Logan, you want to talk to us about that? I'm sure there are a lot of folks that work in the city or live in the city who might be interested in this Citizens Government Academy.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just as a reminder that we are now accepting applications for the upcoming Citizens Government Academy, which will begin on January the 14th at 5:30 p.m. and run through March the 18th. We will have 2 holidays in there, so it's only an 8-week program, but that will last over a 10-week time period. We've received a good number of applications so far. We're very excited about it. We have a couple spots still open, so if anyone is still interested, please contact me at slogan@murfreesborotn.gov, or you can give me a ring at the office at 615-849-2629. But we're really looking forward to this, and it's an opportunity to engage one-on-one with our community and to also show them just what I believe to be a wonderful staff of employees. And I know y'all support that here at the City of Murfreesboro, and just to showcase what all that we do every day in local government. This is an opportunity when you go through the Citizens Academy to really show how you can affect local government. It's one thing that I always say that I love about working in local government is that it's the government which affects people's lives the most, where you can have an interaction on a daily basis with your government and effectuate change. So that's really everything I have to say about it. I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate you all and your support of the program as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and we certainly look forward to that beginning and many more classes. Obviously, in looking at all the departments of city government, it will be a busy 10 weeks to go through, 1 night a week for 8 weeks, but we're certainly looking forward to that, and I'm sure the council members will want to attend all or part of those programs as we have them in the future. So it's really an outstanding service to have it available, and we've talked about it for a long time, and Mr. Washington, to use your influence and get it done, my congratulations to you. Thank you for doing that. All right. Council members, with any other announcements before we get to our consent agenda? If not, you have the consent agenda before you. Are there any questions regarding any of the items on the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'd ask Mr. Lyons to explain one item just because of the phone call I had received today, and if he would do that for you.
Which item is that, Mr.?
I believe it's G on the
G.
consent agenda.
That's the consider recommendations to solid waste director with regards to bids for the purchase of 4 33-yard refuse trucks and packers. All right, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. These are our one-arm bandits. This is what we pick up our solid waste, the garbage cans, week in and week out in our community. These pieces of equipment have served us well, but it's time to replace those. Mr. Smith bid this out on September the 14th. We opened bids on October the 15th and received 4 bids. However, 2 of the bids did not meet the minimum specifications. 2 of the items in particular that did not meet the specifications included issues with the arm length and the dump height. The department had worked hard in understanding how we collect solid waste in the community about what was needed. And so, in particular, in the arm length, we need a longer arm length to reach in the cul-de-sacs. The cul-de-sacs, with the radius that they've got, they need a little bit longer arm. Two of the vehicles did not have a longer arm. Additionally, those same two vehicles were dumping the garbage at a higher level. And when that arm would get up higher, there's concerns in some of the older parts of the community about electric lines, as well as that extra distance to travel to dump the trash could cause it to blow if the residents didn't have it in a garbage bag. So that, along with two other items, were the reasons those two bids were rejected. So the low bid that met specifications was Mack Trucks, and that's our recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions regarding the consent agenda as it's been presented?
Mayor, I move for adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilly. Mr. McFarland, please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. You have before you the minutes of the December 6, 2012 regular meeting. Any additions, corrections to those minutes as they've been presented? If not, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion second. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We have two items for third reading tonight. One is consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to amend an area zone planned industrial development, PID district located along Joe B. Jackson Parkway.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. And also on third reading, consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance regarding land use intensity ratio for multifamily developments.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Now in second readings, we'll consider for passage on second reading an ordinance to amend Appendix A zoning, Sections 15 and 24 in Chart 2 dealing with creation of a city core overlay CCO district.
Move for passage on second read. Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Also, consider for passage on second reading an ordinance to zone an area as a city core overlay CCO district.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. This time we'll consider for passage on second reading an ordinance to rezone 421 South Academy Street to Highway Commercial CH District.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. At this time, consider for passage on second reading an ordinance to rezone property located at 325 East Castle Street to a Highway Commercial CH District.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Consider for passage on second reading an ordinance to rezone an area located along South Manny Avenue and East State Street to Highway Commercial CH District.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Consider for passage on second reading an ordinance to rezone property located at 467 Hancock Street and the rear of 703 East Castle Street to residential multifamily 16 RM16 district.
Move for passage on second read.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Consider for passage on second reading an ordinance to rezone properties along Castleview Court to single-family residential for RS4 district.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. And consider for passage on second reading an ordinance to rezone property bounded by South Academy Street, South Spring Street, East Main Street, and East Sevier Street to Central Business District, CBD.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Pass.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. This time we'll consider for approval a renewal of a certificate of compliance for Gautam A. Patel at 96 Liquor and Wine, 2019A Las Casas Pike.
Mayor, this is required by the state every 2 years. This is a business already established, and he has met our requirements for renewal.
All right. Is there a motion that we approve this renewal?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. You have your renewal. This time we'll hear from Ms. Laura Beth Payne with regards to Read to Succeed presentation of the annual one-book selection. Ms. Payne, welcome.
Good evening to you. Well, seeing as tomorrow is the end of the world, I've got a good book for you to read. Well, this year we have chosen with Read to Succeed on our one-book committee our title for this year, which is John Green's The Fault in Our Stars. Last year was the Hunger Games, as you all recall, and we're excited about this being our follow-up. As many of you know, Read to Succeed tries to partner with another nonprofit in the community to really couple reading with community activism. And this year we're proud to announce that our partner is Clinton's Club, which many of you may have heard of. They actually recently received Darrell Waltrip's Hometown Hero Award. But it's an organization dedicated to supporting families whose children have been diagnosed with cancer. So we're excited about that. The Fault in Our Stars is a story about children with cancer. Now, isn't that an inspiring read? It's a challenging idea because it can sound so heavy, but John Green does it so successfully. The main characters are two teenagers who've been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and the story is really about their journey together with their families, their relationships together, to see what life really means in the face of overwhelming circumstances. It's about the books they read, the trips they take, the humor they share. It's absolutely hysterical in some parts and very heartwarming in others. When I started reading it, I didn't want to read a book about children with cancer. 3 hours later, I hadn't put it down. I was that excited about it. So we're thrilled about this being our choice. We're thrilled about working with Clinton's Club. Childhood cancer is a real issue in our community, and we're glad to bring attention to it, and once again encouraging our community to read together. So I'm happy to present this copy to the council. May I have a volunteer? All right, thank you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Laura Beth. We appreciate you doing this, taking this responsibility.
Is it available in big print?
Mr. Young, always looking out for himself. And the community. And the community. All right. Thanks very much for being here tonight. We're really proud of Read to Succeed and all you do in our community. Thank you. This time, pursuant to a resolution adopted by City Council on November 15, 2012, will conduct a public hearing to consider amending 6.62 acres of planned residential development, PRD district, located along Manchester Highway, U.S. Highway 41. John Floyd and Jim O'Brien are the applicants. Notice of the said public hearing was published in the December 2nd, 2012 issue of a local newspaper. Welcome, Ms. Ely.
Thank you,
Lead
Mayor.
on.
Thank you. Our
first public hearing this evening is to consider amending the PRD, Planned Residential District zoning for property that's located along the western side of Manchester Pike, north of Joe B. Jackson Parkway. The subject property is a larger tract, but the amendment only deals with 6.62 acres of that larger tract. The property that the overall planned development is called Sunset Ridge, and it was zoned PRD in 2004. That PRD consists of 4 separate parts, one of which is Del Sol Commons. Del Sol Commons is the portion of the planned development which you're being asked to consider amending. The program for this part of the development calls for zero lot line development, so that would be 2 structures that are physically attached but share a common wall, and that lot line is also their wall. The previous owner is no longer with us. He's deceased, and therefore the property went in default. So the new owners, John Floyd and Jim O'Brien, are asking to change the program from these properties to no longer develop zero lot line residential homes, but to develop them as single-family detached houses. So they will be physically detached instead of physically attached as the plan currently calls for. The plan also, I'll go ahead and outline the changes. During the Planning Commission meeting, the applicants asked to add an additional condition, and that was that the front yards are the areas, just the front yards will be required to be sodded, and so that's something I think that they asked, and Planning Commission approved the recommendation based on that condition being approved as well, but it's not outlined in your program book, although that is stated in your minutes. The other changes that would be allowed, or which are being called for, are that the requirement that masonry accent, either stone or brick, must be used on the front of every home. It's also to remove the requirement of 70% masonry and the shadow line dimensional shingles from the lots. Also, the change will allow 5-foot side setbacks on these lots, because one lot now, or as currently exists, there's a 0-foot side setback, so they want to add a 5-foot side setback. And then for the lots that are remaining to be developed with single-family detached houses, currently there are 5 structures in the property that are already constructed. 10 units, 5 structures, because these units, each unit does have 2 dwelling units. So the street is currently in binder, and there are some utilities that are stubbed to Section 1. Those remaining lots, they're requesting to develop as single-family detached houses, as well as the rest of that part of the planned development. Representatives are here this evening of the applicant. If you have any questions from them, they have not prepared a public presentation, but either I or Mr. Adelot will be glad to answer any questions you may have. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of this PRD amendment, and I'll be glad to answer any questions either before or after a public hearing.
All right, any questions for Ms. Ely before I open the public hearing? There'll be a variety of houses, Ms. Ely, 1-story and 2-story, is that correct?
That's right, and they've entered some exhibits of houses that they've already constructed. You may have seen some Old South developments. They will be 1-story, 2-story, a variety of, they'll look different when you look at them. And of course, the overall planned development, the larger planned development has condos or townhomes, and then single-family detached, and then, of course, this will add to that single-family detached product. So the overall development will offer a diverse housing style, but the specific architectural styles of these houses will be different, although I think they have a common thread if you look at the photographs in the program book.
All right, any other questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing at this time. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this amendment to this planned residential development, please step forward to the microphone and give us your name and address. Is anyone here wishing to speak? Anyone at all? Last chance? Then I'll close the public hearing at this time. We'll consider for passage on first reading an ordinance to amend a planned residential development PRD district located along Manchester Highway, US 41.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Aye. This time, we'll consider recommendations of the Planning Commission to schedule public hearings for rezoning of approximately 8 acres located along Memorial Boulevard, north of Cedar View Drive, from single-family residential 15 RS15 district to highway commercial CH district, and also an amendment to the zoning ordinance, Section 24, Article 5, PS, Planned Signage Overlay District, subsection D, regarding flag signs. Mr. Adelot, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Bragg, members of the council. During its regular meeting on December 5th, the Planning Commission conducted public hearings on both of the items that you just read and has recommended approval of both. These need to be scheduled for public hearings.
Ms. McGannon.
Mayor, I would suggest January 31st.
January 31st. I will be absent then, but you're welcome to go right ahead with that.
You
All right.
sure you sure
Is there a
you're-
motion?
You sure you're good with that?
I am good.
Okay.
Should we do it a week early?
We certainly can, but that is the week of Martin Luther King. It's a short holiday meeting this year, so that's a short week. We could do it on the week prior to that, but since you're having a council meeting the week prior to that, I thought you might want some space.
Move we set it for January 31st.
Second.
All right. Mr. Gilly and Mr. Young, thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. This time, thank you, Mr. Adelot. We'll consider recommendations of the Planning Commission with regards to mandatory referral to abandon a right-of-way for a portion of Beasley Road. Is that Beasley or Beasy?
Beasy.
Beasy. Sorry. Beasy, B-E-A-S-I-E Road, located north of Warrior Drive.
Yes, sir. During its regular meeting on December 5th, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing and studied a mandatory referral request related to Beasy Road. And this street is located northeast of Warrior Drive and north of Salem Highway, Highway 99. The right-of-way for this street was platted in the early 2000s, and the street was partially constructed. Performance surety for the completion of the street was posted with the city to secure the completion. Since that time, however, the adjoining property along the street and the property at the end of the street have been transferred to different parties. There is now consideration for a different plan for the development of the property that will involve relocation of some or all of the street and may involve extension of a public right-of-way to the property at the end of the street from another direction. All of the affected property owners desire that the right-of-way be abandoned and deeded to the owner of the property at the end of the street. It is recommended that the City Council approve this right-of-way abandonment and authorize the mayor to sign necessary quitclaim deeds and/or other documents to effect the abandonment as requested. There are significant utility lines in the street, and the right-of-way and easements for the continued use and maintenance of these utilities will need to be retained. The abandonment will also need to be subject to the requesting property owners being responsible for all costs associated with the street closure and the right-of-way abandonment. The Planning Commission has studied this and has conducted a public hearing upon the matter, and it recommends approval. The city's engineering department, planning department, and transportation departments all concur with this recommendation. The staff is not aware of any fiscal impact of this. However, we have been holding this security for the surety for the completion of the street for some considerable period of time. I think our city engineer would be very pleased to see us let the street go and release that surety, so we no longer have any obligation towards completion. We recommend approval.
The small commercial area off of 99 at I-24.
Yes, sir. Actually, there's a fairly large tract of land there. Actually, there's 2 tracts of land. It's a little bit deceptive about how large it is because some of it is down by the river, some of it is adjacent to Interstate 24. The street that was built in there was built with curbs and gutters for a portion of it and crushed stone, but it never has been finished. I would add our Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Ives, has been working on this pretty much on and off ever since he came on board with the city. It's been something that I've dealt. I think the staff has spent an inordinate amount of time on this street. We're just glad to see a resolution in the making.
All right, council members, do you have questions regarding this referral to abandon right-of-way for a portion of Beasy Road? If there are no questions, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, a motion and second to approve this recommendation. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Daylight.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time, we will consider recommendations of the Assistant Transportation Director with regards to bids for the purchase of 9 23-passenger buses. Ms. Patton, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Bragg and members of the City Council. You have before you tonight a contract with Mid-South Bus Center for the purchase of 9 23-passenger, low-floor, medium-duty transit buses. We let bids on September the 16th, 2012. As a result, we received 3 bids from 3 different bus manufacturers: Mid-South Bus Center in Murfreesboro, National Bus Sales in Marietta, Georgia, and Alliance Bus Group, Gravel Bus in Jackson, Mississippi. In comparison to our current fleet, the new buses will be 23-passenger buses as opposed to the 16-passenger buses we now have. They will be still 9 buses, medium duty instead of light duty, 2013 Ford Senator ELO low-floor buses. They will be gas instead of diesel. The infrastructure of the city can support either diesel or gas. They will be front-side low-floor entrance ramps. The buses we have now, the operators have to exit the bus in order to operate the ramps. These ramps will be operable from the seated position of the drivers on the bus through the front door, and the new buses will have a 200,000-mile minimum useful life as opposed to the 150,000-mile minimum useful life of our current buses. You have a picture here of the bus prototype. Of course, it will be our signature Rover Green. We received 5 bids from 3 different bus manufacturers. The first and second lowest bid were from Mid-South Bus Center. The third lowest bid was from National Bus Sales, the fourth lowest bid from Alliance Bus Group, and the fifth lowest bid from National Bus Sales. The reason we haven't taken, this is the second lowest bid for the Ford. The first bid that I previously had on your agenda, that bus had not passed a required test by FTA, a structural test, so we had to go with the next lowest bid, which also was Mid-South. Of this bid, 83% of the funds will be Federal Transit Administration funds, which we've already secured, 8.5% state funds, which we've already secured. In the CIP, there was budgeted $977,000 for this purchase. As you can see, we are under that. We came in under budget. We're saving approximately $2,543 in local dollars from the amount budgeted in the CIP. The average mileage of our current buses as of the end of November were 194,100 miles, and there are 5-year minimum useful life because they were bought in 2007. The new buses will have a, FTA recommends these buses be replaced at 150,000 miles or 5 years. So as you can see, we're about 44,000 miles over the required or the available replacement of these buses. Currently, because of the age of our fleet, our O&M costs are gradually rising. For FY11 and FY12, we spend approximately $180,000 a year for PM costs. The first 4 months of this year, we've already spent $107,000 on our buses. So the new buses will have a 150,000-mile warranty, extended warranty on the powertrain. So we put approximately 30,000 miles a year on the buses. So a little bit over 4 years before we have to do anything to the powertrain. You may ask why we need larger buses. In FY 2011, our ridership was 196,509. In 2012, we exceeded that amount with a 30% increase of 254,098 riders. So far, for the first 4 months of this month, we are projecting an increase of 287,976, which is a 12% increase. Fleet Services, Mr. Jack Hyatt and his staff were instrumental in this bid process, and they do concur in the awarding of this bid to Mid-South Bus Company. The bid document requires that the buses be delivered within 180 calendar days. Mid-South has indicated that they can deliver in 150 days, so we're expecting the delivery of the buses late spring or early summer 2013. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Patton? I see that we're getting ready to offer service across I-24.
Yes, sir.
After we vote, why don't you, if you've got just a little time there, you might kind of explain that expanded service for us.
Okay.
If that's all right. Anything else about Rover that you'd like to talk to after our first of the year? What are the changes there might be, if any?
Okay.
Council members, you have this recommendation regarding these bids to purchase 9 23-passenger buses. What are your wishes?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Ms. Patton, just share with us what's going on with Rover and how we're
Okay.
expanding.
On any given day, we get numerous requests for service west of I-24. And Director and I and our staff, the supervisor and operations manager, have been working on a plan to see how we can provide this service. So one of our routes, the Northwest Broad route, has minimal ridership since the moving of the Social Security office, because that's where most of the people were going. So we were able to, two more of our routes drive pretty much over the same area as the Northwest Broad route. So we were able to eliminate the Northwest Broad route and increase service using that bus to the west of I-24 area. That bus will then link with the Gateway bus out off of Gateway Boulevard, and passengers can transfer to that bus to transfer to all of the other Rover buses. That will be an hour route, and it will circulate through Casa Lane, St. Andrews, Highway 99, John Rice Boulevard, Fortress Boulevard, Medical Center Parkway. So we're hoping to start the 2nd of January. It'll be an hourly route running from 6 in the morning till 5 in the evening.
And our staff has put something on our website, the lead article right now on that expanded service, and anyone having an interest can either call the city at 849-2629 or go on the website and take a look at where that new route is going and try to get the hourly schedule for it.
And we are printing new route guides, so they will be out probably in the next week.
Great, and they'll be in the lobby of City Hall and...
Lobby of City Hall, the library, Memphisboro Housing, MTSU. I think that's it.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Anything else for Ms. Patton? Mr. Washington?
I got one thing to say. Good luck navigating out there.
Pardon me?
Good luck navigating out there in that part of town.
Oh. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate your work and having you work with the city. Thank you. For those of you who don't know, Ms. Patton had an extensive background with the State Department of Transportation, and she has certainly been a well-qualified and outstanding person to work with here at the city with her extensive background there. So we're proud to have you, Ms. Patton. This time we'll consider recommendations of the Chief of Police regarding bids for the renovation of the Special Operations Building, approval to renovate the third floor of the main police building, and approval to purchase two-way radio infrastructure upgrades. Chief, welcome.
Mayor, good evening, and members of council. It's a pleasure to be here with you. As you mentioned, we have 3 items on the regular agenda this evening for your consideration. Item A requests your acceptance and approval of the low bid received from 5 Bravo Construction Company, LLC, for the renovation of the Special Operations Building as described below. This project will renovate that building specifically to alleviate roof leaking issues, drainage problems, and some emergency power distribution shortages. The work will involve replacement of the existing leaking metal roof with a covered fastener metal roof that will have a longer lifespan. We also will replace the existing gutters and downspouts to route rainwater more efficiently to address a negative drainage problem that currently is causing water to drain back into that building and cause some issues inside that structure. One of the things that we also wanted to look at, since our Special Operations Unit is located there, is an effort to redistribute some of the emergency power that has been provided for in that building. When we renovated it several years ago, a generator was installed that's large enough to power the whole building, but we didn't have the disconnect switches and transfer switches and so forth to enable that, and that is actually included in this process as well. Johnson & Bailey Architects was approved by the council on August the 30th to bid and oversee this project. They opened bids. We opened bids on Thursday, November the 15th, 2012, and 5 Bravo Construction was the low bidder of 8 bid responses. The 2012 capital improvement plan budget included $100,000 for the renovation of this building. The low bid from 5 Bravo was $115,200, and that will need to be amended by adding $6,000 for some additional footings for the metal canopy. I believe you have a letter in your materials from Lyle Lynch from Johnson & Bailey that describes that. In essence, I think when we started looking at some of the codes issues, there was a metal canopy that was going to be installed as a part of it, and it's got to have concrete footings to protect it from wind draft so that it doesn't blow that canopy away once it's installed. And Mr. Lynch is here tonight in case you have any questions for him about any of that. To that amount, we've added the estimated architectural and engineering fee of $9,765. That brings the total of that project to $130,965. Which is a $30,000, $965 overage, and we would respectfully request that council approve that low bid from 5 Bravo Construction and include the addendum of the $6,000 for the footings and the architectural and engineering of $9765 with funding to come from the 2012 TML loan. I'll be glad to answer questions you have about that, or Mr. Lynch is here perhaps to add to those questions should you have some.
Any questions from the council? It looks like you got a good bid there. Obviously, that 15% less than the second low bidder, at least on the face of it. Have they done some work in the city?
Mr. Lynch?
Mr. Lynch,
is
you
not
aware?
Yes.
Where? Do you know what project? Just give us a little background, if you would. And the reason is it's considerably lower than the other bid. Not dramatically, but considerably.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, 5 Bravo Construction Company worked for Murfreesboro Electric Department, and there's the warehouse that's across the street from their main building over here, and it had a leaky roof, and they replaced the metal roof. They were considerably low on that. They did excellent work and completed the project on a timely basis.
Did they cover the roof, the existing roof, or did they put a new?
On that building, they ripped off the old roof.
They took it off. And this building?
This building is an interesting system. We're doing a roof over system. The existing roof is a exposed fastener roof, and it's leaking after about 20 years, which is about the lifespan of exposed fastener. We're putting back a concealed fastener roofing system, and we put this on some clips on top of the existing roof. That saves some demolition costs, but the big thing it does, it keeps from shutting down the operations and daylighting the inside of their building during the re-roofing process.
Okay, and it adds weight to the structure?
It adds about 1.5 pounds a square foot of weight to the structure, and we've had a structural engineer review the building, and we've got a signed, stamped letter confirming that the additional weight can be supported by the existing structure.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Chief, anything else regarding these bids for renovation of the Special Operations Building?
No, sir. be glad to answer other questions. If not, we just respectfully request your approval and authorization.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, you have a motion second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor. Item B tonight requests your approval to renovate the third floor or portion of the third floor of the main police building using some drug fund monies. As you are aware, earlier this year we relocated our criminal investigation division staff to an off-site location, and this item provides for a partial renovation of that vacated third floor space in the main police building to create 3 interview and interrogation rooms and provide for the relocation of certain operations and uniform division personnel. This evening, we're requesting your approval for Johnson & Bailey to develop bid specification documents and oversee the bidding process for this renovation project. The description of that proposed work is included in the materials that were provided to you tonight, so I won't repeat all of those, but just briefly to say that it does involve some demolition, the addition of some new walls, and a rework of electrical and HVAC as necessary, and most of that work involves the west end of the building's third floor. We wanted to be very judicious, I guess you could say, about the reinvestment of significant amounts of money in that structure, and so we've tried to minimize those costs and are proposing to fund that from the drug fund. Johnson & Bailey estimates the cost of that project at approximately $56,000. And so this evening we are requesting your approval of a contract with Johnson & Bailey to develop bid documents, oversee the bidding process, and then provide information that we could bring back to you later on a low bidder who could do that work. And we'll be glad to answer questions that you may have.
Any questions? If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve this renovation?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item C, request council approval to waive the bid process and purchase two-way radio infrastructure upgrades from Motorola Incorporated. These upgrades are projected for funding in the 2012 Capital Improvement Plan under two-way radios and infrastructure. And we'll talk a little bit more about some earlier purchasing that was made from that line previously. These upgrades are a portion of the comprehensive two-way public safety communications network upgrades that are projected for completion over the next 2 years. The upgrades that we're talking about tonight will provide for a migration, if you will, from a single transmit site to a fully redundant multi-site system. Let me back up and talk about that for just a minute. Currently, we have one transmit capability for public safety communications in the city. As a part of our capital improvement plan, we have proposed, and it has been approved, to purchase and install some additional radio towers at selected locations throughout the city. This should provide us with radio coverage for the foreseeable future and really move us toward a very powerfully designed system of coverage for public safety applications. The second thing it will allow us to do is to convert from our current method of transmission using telephone lines and recurring monthly telephone costs on those lines to really the cutting edge in technology for voice communication, and that uses microwave technology. In these tower sites, as they are designed, bid, and built later in the year, we'd hope to have those constructed by mid to third quarter 2013. We'll use microwave technology and point-to-point transmission across that network for the transmission of public safety radio signals. That's by far the cleanest, clearest, most secure way for two-way radio communication transmission, and that's what we will be migrating to as a part of the infrastructure purchases that we're asking for your approval of tonight. And then just another thing, too, once we get this microwave communication network in place, that will also be the technology that we'll use when we upgrade to 700 megahertz, which is about 2 years out. This is a big project, but getting those towers and that microwave transmission in place will be a major step forward in the clarity of the signals, and that will improve vastly the safety for our police officers and firefighters citywide. The 2012 CIP includes $4,250,000 for two-way radios and infrastructure. And as I alluded to a few minutes ago, you may remember that back in the summer we came to you and asked to spend $2,450,000 to replace all of our portable radios for police and fire. Those have been purchased and deployed. They're working very, very well. We have lots of compliments on them. I'm sure you're receiving some of those as well. The remainder of that $4,250,000 was $1,800,000 for these infrastructure upgrades, and that's what we're bringing to you tonight. Once those things are purchased, then we will have that portion of this project, at least the purchase part of it, completed. The needed two-way radio infrastructure upgrades are available from purchase from Motorola through discounted state GSA contracts at a cost of $1,699,000. That's about $101,000 under the $1,008,000 that we had projected. We actually had another incentive that was offered to us several weeks ago when Motorola came to us and basically said that there was a discounted opportunity off of the state contracts, which was available now through December the 28th. And in effect, if we were to buy this same set of components off of the regular GSA, the cost of those would be about $1,899,000. So we're actually saving about $200,000 on these infrastructure upgrades by virtue of the fact that they were already on the state GSA, and through this narrow window here, Motorola is discounting them farther and allowing us to realize some additional savings. And there's a more detailed description of those components in the materials that you have in your council package tonight. And then Mr. Terry, I think, handed you some color coverage maps and some other equipment information that's on your table tonight. I won't go into great detail about that, but I will say that in about 4 of those coverage maps, you see some detail that shows what the coverage is now on VHF and UHF transmission for police and fire, and what the addition of this infrastructure will do for that as we continue to build out this system. It's dramatic. The increase in coverage is dramatic. And the other thing that I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is that all of these coverage maps are predicated on handheld radios, because as you recall from our earlier discussions, the world that police and fire live in now is with a portable radio on their belt. They may not always be able to get to their car radio, and so the design here is to have 95% coverage throughout the 20-year urban growth boundary for the city of Murfreesboro with a handheld device that guarantees and ensures the safety of our public safety responders. I thank you again for your vision and for your support of that as we move this process forward. We would recommend tonight to use the statewide contract discounts that are available from Motorola through the state of Tennessee contracts. Those numbers are provided for you, and I think a copy of that contract is available. We also would ask again that we would waive the bid process and purchase those two-way radio infrastructure upgrades. I would remind you, and certainly Ms. McGannon is here, but those purchases waiving the bid process are authorized by state law and city ordinance as referenced in the documents that are provided for you. If I could, Mayor, several people here that are continuing to do yeoman's work really on this two-way radio system. Lieutenant Sanders Watson is here. Bill Terry is here, our public safety MIS coordinator. Mr. Crumley is working on this committee with us, as well as Fire Marshal Ken Honeycutt and Commander Tim Swan. And we'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you may have. And I know you'll join me in thanking these folks for the hard work they're continuing to put in to get us where we need to be with two-way.
You do have an excellent team, and I'm certain that the city will benefit from it, and certainly our public service workers will too, so I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Any questions from the council regarding this recommendation?
I was going to ask him about why waive the bid process, but now I know why. You
Yes, sir.
explained it very well.
Thank you, sir.
And Motorola is they're the it in this particular technology. There's only one other that they compete with, that's Harris. And but they're the it nationwide.
And one of the things, Mr. Washington, I'm glad you mentioned that. Mr. Terry and Lieutenant Watson have literally spent hours and hours on the telephone with both of those vendors, Harris and Motorola. The one thing Motorola brings to this is they have government service contracts or GSA contracts, not only for the equipment, but also for the technical service and support necessary to install it and maintain it. Nobody else has that.
Yeah, that's when you explained it, that gave me my answer.
All right. Council members, you have this recommendation before you. What are your wishes?
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland. Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
It passes.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We thank you and thank your team that's working together, certainly Mr. Crumley and Sanders Watson and Bill Terry and Tim Swan and Mr. Ken Honeycutt. We certainly appreciate all the hard work that you put. I've heard several compliments from our first responders, and they seem to be very pleased with where we're going and the direction we're headed.
Thank you, sir, very much. Thank all of you.
Thank you, Chief Crispin. I'd ask you all to stand up. It's late, and I know probably like me, a little creaky. Mr. Godwin, it looks like at this time you want to consider recommendations of the Human Resources Director with regards to the wellness program. Welcome.
Thank you again, Mayor Bragg and members of the City Council. We're pleased this evening to communicate as an agenda item a recommendation that Interactive Health Solutions become the city's new wellness provider and partner. You might recall back in May when the proposal was made to change significant parts of the city's health insurance plan, that one of the most important plans we thought, or portions of that plan, included a component of wellness. So tonight before you in the information is a synopsis of the competitive sealed request process that was carried out in October and the results. There were actually 4 proposers who participated. All 4 were interviewed as finalists, including IHS. And our benefits consultant, Cheryl Morgan, has done a considerable amount of research and work with IHS, with other clients in their book of business. And you'll see included in your information tonight a formal recommendation from Cheryl Morgan that IHS be awarded the contract. And finally, of course, is a service agreement included for your reference. I would like to point out that the proposal does include a program that would be beginning and effective January the 1st. So we would ask tonight that you pay attention to the short time period in front of us. But we're very pleased to make these recommendations based, again, on this being the 3rd component of our health insurance changes. You might recall, of course, that spending looking backward had increased by approximately 34% in the past 5 years, and we believe very firmly that the incorporation of a formal wellness program is the correct direction to go. Importantly, IHS has a good track record with the city's third-party administrator, HealthScope Benefits, and that information was given considerable weight and reference during the process. I would also mention tonight that IHS is quoting a price quote of $195 per participant. So you might recall that this is a voluntary wellness program, and in the near future, we hope to have further recommendations in terms of participation incentives. We believe that in the long term, additional incentives make sense to study. In the near term, we will be speaking again, of course, with IHS. We also include, or plan to include, representatives from a cross-section of city departments to better understand how best to communicate our message with employees in terms of participating in the initial biometric screening and also in the medical health questionnaire process. We do target and anticipate the ability to do that in late February, early March, as a significant event for the city. There'll be a lot of hoopla and communication about that, of course. But more importantly, we hope for a successful event. And you'll notice in the packet, we do intend in the proposal to cover city employees, spouses, eligible dependents, and retirees. So this is a very large population of coverage, and that is those individuals who are otherwise benefit eligible for participation. Tonight, in attendance with us are Mr. Brett Aprati, who's District Manager with IHS, and Mr. Christopher Parks, who's VP of Business Development. I'd like to ask Mr. Aprati to speak for just a few minutes regarding an overview of IHS. Following his remarks, I'll return back for any questions that you might have. Brett.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to address you all. And as Glenn had mentioned, we've been in very close contact with not only the Human Resources team, but also the city manager as well, and really kicking off this process for not only employees, but spouses, retirees, as well as dependents on the health plan. It's a great opportunity to provide a great benefit for those individuals. To give you a little bit of background of our organization, we started back in 1992 when for most organizations wellness was probably not even a blip on the radar. We've seen wellness becoming more front and center these days with whether it's talks of health reform, with talks of increasing medical costs, and we've been working with employer groups all throughout the country, over 1,500 current clients, including about 65 municipality groups that we work with currently to develop and administer these wellness strategies and programs for the members that they see fit in offering this out to. In that experience, in that track record, we've developed strategies that we've really seen effective with organizations being able to harness in those ever-increasing medical costs, while at the same time providing a great benefit for those individuals. It's an opportunity for individuals to have a very comprehensive wellness evaluation done actually here on site. We are an independent third-party organization. We're not affiliated with any insurance carriers. We do have a relationship with your third-party administrator, HealthScope, which enables us to work very closely with plan resources that you have already available to you to really help individuals engage in their health, but more importantly, keep engaged and stay engaged throughout the entire year. Our program's really built upon a very comprehensive wellness evaluation. I won't go too far into the details, but it encompasses, as Glenn had mentioned, a medical history questionnaire that will have each individual fill out in conjunction with a blood pressure analysis, as well as a full blood chem panel, where we run over 36 different tests for each individual. So covering virtually every organ in the body, not just your cholesterol levels or your glucose levels, which many people are very commonly seeing these days, but it does take into effect very expansive treatment of the other body systems as well. So virtually every organ in the body is looked at. Gives each individual a very comprehensive profile that, again, is specific to themselves. I think the most important thing to note is every part of our program is completely HIPAA compliant, so the confidentiality and the privacy is kept in the forefront. All of that information is strictly for that individual. None of that information is shared with the city, with the employer in any way. We are able to provide some aggregate reporting to the city, which really highlights some, it's completely anonymous. There's no individuals identified, but it does create some ability to have data on the population to better utilize those wellness resources, but also better filter those plan resources into the right type of areas. So in essence, it's helping you to run a more effective health plan, where in the U.S. today, we typically see most people use the health plan as a sick plan. Most people go in when they don't feel well. So this is an opportunity to really have a preventative process brought here on site. We employ our own medical staff, which we will send out here. As Glenn had mentioned, we're targeting the end of February, early March for the on-site events. As he mentioned, we'll also be kicking off a very comprehensive communication process which would include me being out on site to provide informational meetings, Q&A sessions where individuals can come out, ask questions. I'll give a brief summary of the program, what's included, talk more especially about that privacy issue, because that is one of the backbones of our program. So in conjunction with that, we understand that the blood draw, the health risk assessment, medical history questionnaire is really the start of it. We have built into our strategy different resources that are available to all participants throughout the entire year, from one-on-one health coaching to online tools, printed materials, telephonic resources that are available all throughout the year for all individuals who participate. And the idea behind that, giving them those tools and resources that are helping them to either maintain a currently healthy lifestyle, or if there's some improvement needed, getting them to those next steps, helping them improve, helping them to maintain and improve upon their health throughout the year. And we certainly hope we get your blessings on this, and I'm happy to answer any further questions. I wanted to at least give a brief summary, so I appreciate the opportunity, and anything I can answer, I'd be happy to.
Any questions? All right, thank you for your presentation, Brett. Thanks for being here. And Christopher, you're also good. Thank you very much. This is open to all city employees, is that correct?
Mayor, it's open to all benefit-eligible city employees. So it would be full-time employees, it would be retirees, it would be spouses and their dependents.
Okay. Yes, sir. All right. Anything else? Any other questions regarding this recommendation?
Mayor, as you know, we've taken a long look at our health insurance. We know that's a significant expense for the city. So we've been working on program design. We've looked to make our employees partners in our health insurance program, and now we're turning our eyes toward how can we help them get healthier. That is the goal here, is how can we best get our employees healthy. We think this is a great opportunity to empower them and provide them information. Certainly, as Mr. Godwin mentioned, it'll be a voluntary program. We're not going to force anyone into this, but we are going to look for ways to incentivize them to participate. This will be what we've heard through the interview process is that typically in an organization, 2 to 3% of the employees who participate will have a major undisclosed or undiagnosed illness that'll cause them to get a phone call that said, you better go to the doctor or the ER tomorrow. So we know that can be a way for us to avoid cost in major claims and most importantly see that employee get the care that they need. So we certainly see there's an expense side to this. But we also understand that when we catch things like that and get our employees healthier, there'll be some cost savings as well. So a little bit difficult for us to budget. We'll need to develop some experience with this over time. But all the indications say that this will help our employees get healthier, and it'll be good for all of us.
Mayor, if there are no other questions, I move for approval.
All right. Mr. McFarland, thank you.
Second.
Mr. Gilly. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Thank you.
Mayor.
This time we'll consider recommendations of the Assistant City Manager with regards to approval of a contract with SEC Incorporated for site selection and analysis of a proposed public safety training facility. Mr. Crumley, welcome.
Mayor, thank you. It's been a very good night for our public safety departments. Thank you for your approval of the next step in revamping the radio communication system. Tonight is our first step in the public safety training facility that you approved in the capital improvement program. We're suggesting that you hire SEC Incorporated to assist in selecting the exact site for that training facility. The two sites that we've suggested to them are the Jordan and the Coleman farms, both owned by the Water Sewer Department. Both of those tracts were purchased for the disposal of effluent. And consideration of that purpose for disposal of effluent is one of the major factors in the site consideration as we go forward. The typical things that you would think about locating a facility such as this, cost of utilities, ease of preparation of the site, are there. In addition to that, we're asking that they pay close attention to any neighborhoods, any residences that could potentially be impacted by the public safety training facility. while it's designed to be an 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. facility, there will be occasions on weekends and at night when the facility is used for training purposes. So making them aware of being good neighbors is an important part of the consideration. SEC has proposed to us on an hourly basis not to exceed $10,000. They're very familiar with both parcels of real estate, having done drip irrigation studies for the water sewer department. And we'd recommend your approval of the contract.
Are these sites in the city limits?
Both are currently in the city limits.
All right, you have this recommendation of the Assistant City Manager with regards to the approval of this contract with SEC for site selection analysis. Are there any questions? Mr. McFarland?
Which, is it the Coleman Farm that's on Leanna Swamp Road?
Correct. And about 400 acres in total.
Okay. The only thing I would like to make a quick comment that SEC would take into account that we've got a very large soccer complex that's close to that. I think that property touches it. So anything that we put there that would be generating a problem for the use of all the kids that use that, I think that's something we would definitely want to be aware of.
And that's actually the Jordan farm that's closest to the Siegel Soccer Complex. There is only one parcel that separates Siegel Soccer from the Jordan farm, and that certainly will be one of the considerations, is the impact on the neighborhood around the site.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly? Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Cromley. This time we'll consider recommendations of the city manager with regards to the Veterans Administration contracts for fire service and the VA golf course. Mr. Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. City staff has continued negotiations with the VA for both the fire service as well as the operation of the golf course there. However, we have not reached a point of conclusion with either of those, so we are recommending a extension on the fire service agreement. The current contract expires next week, December 31st, so we're recommending a 3-month extension from January through the end of March at the current rate of $68,750 per month, and we would request your approval.
All right, you have this motion to approve this extension of the contract for fire service. Is that right? Just fire service only?
Correct, and then I'll touch on the golf.
All right, for fire service. Are there any questions regarding this recommendation?
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Aye.
Likewise, on the golf side, we recommending we continue to operate as we have. The VA is suggesting a 6-month term starting January 1st, 2013, and expiring June the 30th, 2013. We would ask for your approval of that as well.
Is that, Mr. Lyons, is that normal length of that contract, 6 months?
Well, no, we've as you will recall, we had attempted to negotiate a 70-year lease for that property. That was not successful, so we've really been going on a year-to-year basis. And Mr. Crumley has tried to talk.
The last agreement was 8 months.
Okay, well, I just didn't know if that seems like an awful short.
This will get us on a fiscal year with them as well, link up with the city's fiscal year.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Aye. At this time, we'll hear from the city engineer with regards to submittal of certifications.
Consider.
Uh-oh, this doesn't look like a city engineer. I thought.
Mayor's getting long.
It is. He's coloring it. All right. We will hear from the Service Excellence Coordinator with regards to submittal of certifications for a State Industrial Access SIA grant for a manufacturing distribution facility on Singer Road, and consider for adoption a resolution requesting assistance from the Tennessee Department of Transportation for roadway improvements associated with the development of a manufacturing and distribution facility on Singer Road by Ron Buck. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Members of City Council, on behalf of Mr. Griffith, the city engineer, and myself, we ask for your approval tonight to submit to the state of Tennessee, Tennessee Department of Transportation, a state industrial access grant for property located along Singer Road. The property is approximately 23.5 acres, zoned light industrial, and is the home of the former Singer sewing machine facility. And the Planning Commission yesterday approved a site plan for this project that would allow for the retainage of a portion of the building, as well as demolition of one part and the addition of a 400,000 square foot warehouse building at the rear. This is for an industrial improvement project that we're working on. The average daily trucks that we're estimating for this project is 60 per day. If you've been on Singer Road, you know that it is obviously a substandard street and would not be able to service that kind of traffic in its present condition. We are looking to upgrade that street as part of the required improvements by the Planning Commission. The applicant has requested that the city apply for state industrial access funds for this project, and as you know, the city will not be binding. It's a non-binding agreement, as well as there will also be no funds that are required from the city. We will only act there to be able to be grant support and staff support for the project. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you at this time.
Any questions for Ms. Logan? If not,
I've got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Ms. Logan?
Yes, sir.
Who's the primary user of the product that's produced by this facility or sorted by this facility?
It's going to be owned by a Mr. Ron Buck, who will be leasing it to a supplier for Nissan.
Okay. And if it's using Nissan primarily, most of the trucks, I'm assuming, will be going that direction. Is there stacking capacity when a train is going down the track on the, what I call the National Highway? Is there stacking room to allow for trucks to line up?
Not presently, and that will be part of the road improvements that are be required with the site plan, as well as part of a portion of the improvements will be what would be covered under this grant application.
Because currently there's no stacking lanes.
No, sir.
Okay.
We did receive a traffic study on that, and certainly we would have the inbound product coming from the plant turning right on Singer Road into the facility.
Right.
However, I believe most of the traffic leaving the site is going to turn right, but we are looking at the stacking in the turn lane that would be required so that can be done safely.
Okay. Leaving is going to turn right on Florence Road? Or?
Turning right onto Broad Street and hitting 840 for where it's going.
About 80% of the traffic was estimated to be turning right onto Broad Street.
So right in, right out for 80%. Is that what?
Yes, sir.
You said 840 was the primary destination?
Yeah, they'll be looking to get to the interstate. Yes, sir.
Other questions? Good question. Other questions? All right. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Thank you. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Aye. Item
Thank you.
24 has been withdrawn. Beer permit applications. Ms. Wright?
None tonight, Mayor.
All right. You have before you the statements to be considered for payment. Are there questions regarding the statements to be considered for payment?
Move that we pay the bills.
All right. You have a motion and a second to pay the bills. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Aye. I placed on your desk 3 original current applications for reappointment to our Gateway Commission. That is for Mr. Rick Sane, Mr. Harold Yoakley, and Mr. Stephen Dotson. I recommend that we reappoint these 3 individuals to the Gateway Commission.
Is that a motion made?
I can't make a motion.
Oh, okay. Move to accept the mayor's recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll. Thank you.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris. Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Other business from staff or
Mayor, I just have one quick comment.
Mr. McFarland?
I believe, unless I'm wrong, but the Polar Bear Plunge is the first Saturday in January, which will be January 5th. I'm happy to announce that talked with Mr. Peter Demas today. Mr. Demas has agreed to jump. A local doctor, John Zupkus, the president of our chamber, Paul Latour, has agreed to jump. Mr. Lyons has agreed to jump. So it's going to be a really good group that's going to be out there. So really would like to encourage everyone to come out. It's good for the school foundation, the food bank. So really would like everyone to come out and join all of us out there. Make sure when you see some of those guys to tell them thanks for being out there.
Mr. McFarland, are you planning to jump with that illustrious group?
I will be there jumping as well. And I forgot to mention that my twin brother Sean is going to be out there as well. So
You're going to have him jump twice and say it was you,
I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. But I want to encourage everyone to come out and make sure if you see these guys out in the community, thank them for participating.
I'm 9 out of 10.
Yeah, Doug's done it several times.
That's right. And Judge McFarland every year.
And you know, it's been traditional that the vice mayor jump,
Oh,
too.
that's
That's right. That's right, Ron. Yeah.
Not our brother.
Ain't gonna happen. Eddie
I
also,
knew he was gonna bring
it
that up.
is required for new council people that they should jump also.
Is that right? Is that just
That's-
I'm supposed to be meeting with Ron that day.
Mayor, I'm perfectly fine if we're all here right now, that we all as a council just make a pact to be there to support our city schools.
It's not part of the wellness program.
No, but it could be.
I don't do the dunk tank, and I don't do the polar bear plunge. So. All right, thanks for bringing that up, Mr. McFarland, and creating dissension in the council. I really do appreciate that. It's very nice of you to do that. Anything else? If not, you're adjourned.
Merry Christmas.